Hello and welcome to Chapter 14 of Small Business Management, where we're going to be talking about building customer relationships. It's a little bit different from what we've been talking about recently, but customer relationships is one of the most important elements of a successful small business. You have to be able, as a business owner, to make sure that you're meeting your customers' needs and that your current customers and future customers are always satisfied. This chapter talks about how companies go about doing that. Here are our learning goals for this chapter. So, what is customer relationship management? This is an acronym that you're going to see a lot of in some of your courses, but mainly when you graduate and get out into the business world. CRM, or customer relationship management, is a buzzword that has been around for a while and it's not going anywhere. It is definitely something that marketers and businesses know is important. So what is customer relationship management? Well, basically, it's a business strategy that is utilized company-wide. In other words, all departments, every person, every employee inside the firm understand that in order to be profitable, we have to make sure that our customers are satisfied. So we focus on our customers with everything that we do, and everything that happens within the firm. It revolves around the customer and making sure that customers are satisfied. So the focus of CRM is around customers rather than products. We design our products by focusing on the customers. What do the customers want? What do they need? What do they demand? What is going to satisfy them? Our processes, our systems, accounting, finance, everything that we do in the company is still it's focusing on the customer, and how do we make sure our processes meet those stringent guidelines. Sometimes it means changing the culture of the organization, because if you remember, not too long ago, well, you may not remember, but I certainly do, companies didn't focus on customers. Companies focused on products and profits. Customers were they came. But now that there's competition, now that there's alternatives and different options to customer problems, then companies decided and realized that they had to focus their attention around the customer. There's definitely economic benefits for making sure that our customers are happy and that we maintain relationships with our current customers. Acquisition cost, or the cost of getting a new customer, is very high. We have to usually increase our marketing. We usually have to discount our price to get the new customers to come in and try our products or our service. However, long-term customers don't have an acquisition cost. They're already a customer, and they spend more money than new customers, and they purchase products and services without the business having to discount those services and products. Also, satisfied customers refer their friends. They will bring you business. They will actually market your business for you. Order processing costs are lower for established customers, especially if you're talking about manufacturing customers. If you've got an existing customer, setting up the order or setting up the product is much easier with existing customers. And as I mentioned before, current customers are willing to pay more for the products. They're willing to buy when things aren't on sale because they trust you, they like you, and they like the product. So these happy customers, they pay more for their products, they refer friends and colleagues. However, if they're not happy and unhappy, they will abandon us and buy from a competitor. So it's obvious to anyone, really, common sense, that we need to keep our current customers happy And we have to go after new customers because we have to build our customer base. But we really need to keep current customers satisfied, because that is where the bulk of our business is going to come from, and it's less expensive than getting new customers. So what are the two building blocks of a successful customer relationship program? Obviously, we need to make sure that every transaction with customers is outstanding and meets and exceeds their expectations. That means that anytime they actually make contact with us, whether it be through over the phone, online, in store, seeing something or on television, or hearing something about us on the radio, making sure that that relationship, that transaction that happens is positive. And then building block number 2 is the knowledge of the customer, or the knowledge of the customer's behavior. How do they make decisions? What influences them, both psychologically and sociologically? What about how often do they buy? When do they buy? Where do they buy? Knowing that customer inside and out allows us to provide exceptional customer service, which is going to keep them coming back. So I sort of talked about transactional relationships, and it's really important that in order to deliver that extraordinary service, that we always make sure that for every transaction or experience that they have, they are getting more than what they expected. And small firms actually have an advantage over larger firms to do this, because the owners or the entrepreneurs, the founders of the business, are closer to the customer. In a large company, in order to make customers happy all the time, sometimes it takes upper level management decisions to occur, and sometimes that takes time. Whereas a small business where the owner is close to the customer, decisions can be made almost instantly that make sure that the customer is receiving the service that they expect and the service that they deserve. So it's very important that as an entrepreneur, you know that you have really an advantage over some of your larger competitors. We know that superior service creates customer satisfaction. It has to be more than just meeting their expectations. We have to exceed their expectations in order to satisfy them. And then that satisfaction results in a positive transactional relationship. And that in turn leads to increased profits because of increased sales. Some key elements to keep in mind with customer satisfaction. It's a little bit more than providing the most basic benefits of the product or service. We have to actually deliver extraordinary service in order to create customer satisfaction. You're not really going to refer customers if the only thing that our services or products do is meet your expectations. We want to make sure that we exceed expectations, and we do everything we can for that to happen on every transaction. And that's why a customer relationship management program and process is important. So ways to provide extraordinary service, especially for a small business. Do business on a first name basis. If you can get to know your customers, it's really important that they feel like they're getting the personal touch because you know them by name. Keeping in touch, sending them a letter of thanks, or an email message, or even a text message thanking for their business. Finding ways to help and finding ways to solve their problems, even if it means going out of your way to do so. When I had West Virginia Discount Medical, it's countless times I would go above and beyond by just, the customer would come in and say, well, this is my problem. This is what I've got to do. My dad's at home. He's elderly, and I'm having trouble getting him into the car. What can I do? How can you help me? Well, we had some products that might have helped them, but even though we had products and they would buy those products, I would go beyond and say, listen, there's help out there for you. Here's some numbers to some outside organizations that might be able to help you. And they were unaware of this, and they were very happy and satisfied that I was able to help them above and beyond just the product. Provide that custom service, the service that every individual customer wants is different. So providing that customized service for each individual customer. Addressing problems promptly. Something happens and there's a problem, solving that problem quickly. Getting involved with your sales associates or your employees to make sure that they have the authority and the autonomy to make decisions in order to solve a problem. Don't let those problems linger, because customers that have problems with you, the longer it goes, the less likely they'll come back. Also, the more likely they'll tell others about the problem. You don't want that to happen. There's ways to provide this extraordinary service, and it's almost critical. It just basically is a necessity as a small business, in order for a small business to survive, to provide this type of service. Customer experience management is just a step beyond transactional relationship. So this is where everything that happens, every time that there is a contact with the customer, that it's a positive one. They phone in and talk to a sales associate. They have a positive experience. They see something online and they want to purchase it, and they go through the purchase process online, and it's a positive experience. Making sure that every time there's a touch point that the customer has with the business, that it's favorable and positive. And so it's sort of like taking customer relationship management, customer transactional relationships, one step beyond, and going to what now they call customer experience management. Still, CRM is one of the big buzzwords. This is a newer acronym and a newer theory, but it lends itself to increase customer satisfaction. Providing an exceptional experience every transaction, providing sales materials that are clear and easy to understand, both for the customer and for your employees, and responding promptly to customer requests and concerns. We talked about that earlier, but making sure that your employees have the authority to make decisions and to respond quickly. Listen to customers and respond accordingly. Stand behind your products and services. If they don't work, take them back. Make sure that customers don't ever come to the point where you say, well, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. You say that, you've lost a customer. Stay in the hearts and minds of customers. I was rummaging over this extended break that I've had, or we've all had. I was rummaging through some of my old West Virginia Discount Medical paraphernalia that I had in the basement. I was trying to get rid of some of it. Had about 10 boxes down there of old receipts and just everything from the business. But one of the things I ran across, and I saved it, I had actually created thank you cards. I went online to Shutterfly, I believe it was, and I created these very small, but they were thank you notes, and I would send them to every customer that came in and bought, something that was of significant value, like a scooter or a wheelchair or something, a hospital bed. And I would send this out. I would send the thank you note out, and then I would also send a coupon for their next purchase, or to refer a friend and give the coupon to a friend. But that was staying in the hearts and minds of the customer. Here's a customer service strategy checklist just to take a look at. You might want to browse through this as you're putting your business. This might be something you want to put in your business plan. But I don't have much to say on it. You can just take a look at. We've went over most of it. What happens when there is dissatisfaction? What happens when you don't meet those customers' expectations? Well, as you can see from this chart, there's a lot of things that can happen. I mean, where they can publicly complain to the Attorney General or other governmental agencies. They can maybe sue you. Obviously, they can tell friends about their bad experience, or they might post a complaint online. It's very scary to know of all the things that a disgruntled customer can do to hurt your business. And so you don't want to shy away from customers that you think might be dissatisfied. You want to make sure that you uncover their dissatisfaction early so that you can correct it. You don't want these customers to walk out of the store without saying anything. You want to make sure they're happy, because the damage that they can do after the purchase is tremendous. And you just don't want that to happen to your business. So real quickly though, what's out there for companies to help them with their customer relationship management? Well, there's software systems out there. There's call centers. There's third-party companies that you can hire to call customers and make sure that they're satisfied or handle complaints. Social networking. There's lots of things that you can do to try to make sure that your customers are getting the attention that they deserve. Here is just some software packages that are available. You might recognize Salesforce.com. That's probably the biggest one right now. And it's used by larger companies to manage their customer relationship management program. When you're building a customer relationship management database, this takes me back to when I first started in sales years ago in pharmaceuticals and in selling copiers for Xerox. One of the things that we did, and this is way before we had every salesperson had a laptop computer or a tablet to work on. This was when we basically were keeping notes, physical notes on note cards or in notebooks, where we had all the information about the customer, their personal information, demographics about them, how old they were they married, where did they live, did they have kids, where did they go to school. Nowadays we would have internet information, maybe their email address, transaction data, what have they bought in the past, at what price, when did they buy it, lifestyle and psychographic data, profile of past responses, any complaints they might have had. I mean, this would be like an encyclopedia of the customer, and it would tell us everything about each individual customer and gave us a lot of groundwork and resources to go by as we tried to capture future business from them. It also helps when you have a database on customers when maybe you have a change in salespeople. Salespeople might leave, or they may be promoted within your firm, and now those customers are being taken care of by another salesperson. To have this data gives them a leg up instead of trying to find out all this information on their own. So using a database real quickly here, and I'm almost finished. Creating an effective CRM program, we want to make sure that we got relevant information about the customer in our program. And it helps us to analyze the data to understand the customers. Garbage in, garbage out. We want to make sure, I don't know if you've heard that term before, we want to make sure everything that we put in the database is accurate and makes sense to be in there. This is just some other things that you might want to take note of. Customer segmentation strategy is basically identifying customers into smaller groups. If you remember from marketing principles, segmentation is putting customers in groups where these groups are homogeneous. In other words, they have similarities. To give you an example, at Xerox, we had people who only worked with schools. We had people who only worked with or sold to hospitals. And so that's a customer segmentation strategy. The 80-20 principle often applies, meaning that 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. Knowing who that 20% is critical. Making sure that you're focusing on who you need to focus on when you're working with your customer. And the last thing I want to talk about, at least on this page, is the customer lifetime value. Realizing that customers have a value if they stay with you. They have a greater value than that one-time purchase. And companies realize this, and if they're smart, they will show their salespeople and their service people that in order to maximize the value from each customer, we have to keep those customers satisfied and coming back to us for repeat sales. I think lastly here we're going to talk about the sales process. This is not consumer behavior, so I'm not going to really talk too much about this, and you won't see anything on the quiz about this. But there are some stages that customers go through when they go through this purchasing process. The very first stage is need recognition. There has to be a problem that they're looking to have solved, whether just trying to solve their hunger and buying lunch, or solving their transportation needs by buying a car. Need recognition. Once a need has been recognized, that's when the customers go out and search for information about products and services that they might be in the market for. They also evaluate those products and services. So they take a look, and through that information search, they try to come up with some alternatives. When they do this, they come up usually with an Evoked Set. I don't think I talk about this in marketing, but I don't talk about it here too often. But an Evoked Set is, in this picture you see Homer Simpson. If Homer Simpson is hungry for pizza, his Evoked Set might be Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Papa John's. If those are the businesses that are in his Evoked Set, all the other businesses that sell pizza don't have a chance for his business. It's the goal of small businesses to get into the Evoked Set of their customers. So if I'm a small hardware store, let's say I'm Jim's Small Town Hardware, that's the name of my store. And what I want to make sure is all my customers, when they need something from a hardware store, that at least I'm in their Evoked Set. They might say, well, I'm either going to go to Lowe's, I'm either going to go to Home Depot, or I'm going to go to Jim's Small Town Hardware store. If I'm in the Evoked Set, then I have a chance for the business. But if I'm not in the Evoked Set, I'm not going to get their business. So it's a goal of every small business to make sure. And that's done through keeping customers satisfied, but it's also through promotion and marketing. Stage 3 is the purchase decision, the decision that they actually go through when they make the purchase. And then stage 4 is the post-purchase evaluation. After they've made the purchase or after they've come to your business, are they satisfied? If they're not satisfied, they go through this post-purchase dissonance. It's the anxiety that they have after they've purchased a product. Now, on smaller price products or in services, it doesn't happen as much, but on larger purchases, it does. Can you imagine buying a car, then going home that night and thinking, oh, I really spent too much for that car, and you have this anxiety? It's the job of the business to make sure that the customer doesn't have this post-purchase dissonance. They do that by sharing information and making sure that they are giving them everything they need when they're making that decision. So guarantees and trial periods will help. Customer follow-ups, confirming information from other users. So when someone comes to purchase from your business, they're well informed, they know why they're buying, they understand the product, and so forth. And those customer follow-ups are helpful too, because this post-purchase dissonance can lead to customer complaints, as you can see. And finally, this is just a simplified model of consumer behavior, and you can take a look at it. But there are psychological influences and sociological influences that have impact on how we purchase. I know that Marketing 3310 at Fairmont State, which is consumer behavior, I used to teach it, but now Professor Floyd teaches it, where that course goes into all of these different elements of the consumer's psyche as they're getting ready to make decisions on purchases. So that sort of wraps up chapter 14. It's a very important chapter because it's crucial that a business has some type of plan that is going to make sure that customers are satisfied and that customers are happy with the products that they buy. And so I would encourage you in your business plan to have some section there that talks about customer satisfaction, that talks about what you're going to do, from training your employees to making sure they know about the products, to a follow-up plan for each customer, or how you plan to touch your customer after the sale, and so forth. So I think it's a very important chapter as we go along. So that's chapter 14. There'll be a short quiz. I think that this quiz here is actually very short. It's only 5 questions. But this is one of the most important chapters from, I guess, a psychological standpoint. We can build a business, but if we don't satisfy customers, that business is going to fail pretty quickly. And I'm a big proponent of customer satisfaction. And it was born and bred in me when I worked for companies like Xerox and JCPenney's. So think about this long and hard as you're developing your plan for your business. And I will talk to you next week. Take care.